Today I am stoked. First and foremost because this is the first video on my new YouTube channel called The Photography Minimalist. And second, I'm receiving a package in the mail today. It's a very old analog medium format camera. I'm going to be unpacking it, reviewing it and using it for my first video. So let's grab a cup of coffee and get started. Right, well the package has come into the mail. So let's get started unpacking this interesting camera. This could get interesting. One extra film back. A camera strap and a flash cable. A few coke-in filters. Came out of its box. We'll have a look at that in a few minutes. Of course, the user manual. Again, additional coke-in filters. Coke-in filter holder. A step-up ring. And last but not least, here we have the camera. This is a Revue 66 and it's in immaculate condition. So let's have a closer look at this camera. Let's have a closer look at the Salyut medium format 6x6 film camera, and I want to just touch base on the main features of this camera and give you a little bit of a history on the Salyut cameras. This camera was actually built as a near copy of the Hasselblad 1600, and as you can see here on the left side of the body it says made in USSR, so it's a Russian built camera. These cameras, they were made approximately from 1958 all the way through to 1972, and they were made in 3 different versions, and this is actually version number 3. Now these cameras are modular, meaning that we have a camera body with a detachable film magazine for 120 film, and as you can see here I have 2 film magazines that came with this camera. We have a detachable waist level viewfinder which easily clicks up, as you can see, and it has a little magnifying glass inside the viewfinder to pinpoint your focus. Very easily collapsible again. And of course we also have the lens. And this is a standard lens the camera came with, which is an Industar 29, 80mm, largest aperture 2.8 and the smallest one being 22. These cameras are quite easy to use, and something that immediately strikes you when you hold the camera is first of all the weight, but also for sure the build quality. These cameras are very nicely built. The cocking mechanism is extremely easy by turning this knob, and if you get used to it you can do it all in one go. And on this knob, after you've cocked the shutter, you can adjust the shutter speed. And the shutter speeds actually go from a B bulb mode, and then half a second, quarter of a second, all the way through to a top speed of 1/1000th of a second. Now the interesting thing about this camera also is that the lens has a lever which has a cocking mechanism. So you can push this lever all the way down until it clicks. And what it does is actually open the aperture all the way, which puts in as much light as possible, which makes it very easy to focus on your subject. Because when focusing through the waist level viewfinder, of course focusing the lens, you want pinpoint focus, and then you want as much light as possible coming through the lens. How do you achieve that? By using the maximum aperture, which is 2.8. So pushing this lever all the way down before you take your image opens up your aperture all the way, putting as much light as possible through your lens, making it much easier to focus on your subject. So for example, if I was now to put it to f11 or f16, and I would release the shutter, you see the mechanism clicks back first, putting the aperture back to 16 before the actual photo is taken. The viewfinder, when you look into the viewfinder, it's extremely bright. It's unbelievable. It's a joy to look through. And the reason for this is because there's a Fresnel lens underneath the viewfinder, which actually improves the overall light in your viewfinder by 250%, and in the corners up to 100%. And if you also take into account this lever that opens the aperture all the way to 2.8, you can imagine that you have a beautifully bright viewfinder, which very much helps in pinpointing your focus. And to prove that point, I'll point my camera into the viewfinder. Now that we had a look at the camera, I'm very excited to shoot some film. I filled up one of the magazines with Kodak Portra 160 color film and the other magazine with Foma Pond 400 black and white film. In the next video, I'll show you the results.